What's up guys, my name is Autumn. I'm a designer and stylist from Toronto. Welcome back to my channel. This is a series on my channel called Our Badass Main Floor. It's a series where I take you behind the scenes room to room as I renovate and redecorate our main floor apartment. Like many people living in the city, storage is definitely a bit of an issue when you live in an apartment. In our apartment, we had a lot of just random things kind of laying about, like tools, photography gear, interior design samples. We did previously have a cabinet in the hallway that connects the dining room to the office, and it just felt bulky and it didn't really fit the space properly. It was just a little bit short, it was a little bit too deep, and I just really wanted to create a solution that looked seamless, that looked built in even though it's not, and something that we could take with us when we leave the apartment later, as we are renters. So we partnered up with Lowe's to create a shallow tool storage cabinet, and today I'm going to give you a rundown on how to create one yourselves. First things first, you're going to want to decide where you're installing your cabinet and then get really concise measurements. In our case, because we wanted it to look built in, the measurements were super important so that we made sure to account for the exact space that we had to play with. We do live in an older house, so we did have to play a little bit. The floors are not super even and neither is the ceiling. So it was a little bit of a challenge to make it look built in, but I think we did a great job. Next, you're going to want to use a table saw to cut all of your birch pieces, and these are going to be your sides. Use 1.5-inch screws to attach the plywood sides to one square frame and then the other, and then repeat on the opposing side. Next up, you're going to want to install your hinges. Measure and lay out your hinge locations. 8 inches down from the top and about 8 inches from the bottom is what we chose to do. You're going to want to carefully cut and chisel out notches for your hinges and then install the hinges onto the frame with 1/2-inch screws. Next up, you're going to want to add your backing. Install birch plywood as backing on the right section and the lower section with 1.5-inch screws. In our case, we also added hole board on the tool storage side so that we could kind of just like have all of our tools like visually at the ready on display. So that's an option that you can use. So for the main section there, we just did straight up hole board as the backing. From there, we're going to want to start to think about our shelves. So any additional 2x4 supported shelf should be installed with 3-inch screws at this time. We chose to do 2x4 supported shelf on the left section and plywood supported shelves in the right section, which can be done in the next step. Install your inner plywood pieces, keeping in mind to make notches to allow the door hinges to swing out. Then you're going to want to install plywood strips with 1.5-inch screws, if you've chose to do any plywood shelves. Screw the shelf down into the plywood strips with 1-inch screws. The next thing that you're going to want to do is pre-cut all of your pieces. So if you have your measurements, you're going to know what kind of sizing you need for your pieces, and then you're going to assemble your frame. So you're going to want to cut your 2x4s and use 3-inch screws to attach them to each other and create 2 identical square frames. In our case, we decided to do 2 sets of cabinets because I wanted it to go to the ceiling to look built in. So depending on if you're doing 2 sets or 1, that's going to determine how many of these squares you're going to make. Doors. So you're going to want to use a table saw again to cut your doors. Mark hinge holes on the door when it's closed, and then use the hinge and a 1/2-inch screw to install the door hinges. Mark drill holes for the handles. Use a stud finder to mark a stud on the wall anywhere where your backing plywood cabinet is located. Depending on your height, you may need to use 1 3-inch screw just to make sure that it's really secure. And if you're building a cabinet that's higher than 6 feet, which is what we did in our case, just make sure that you're screwing it into a stud at a higher location as well. So you're going to want to move the cabinet in place and then screw the stud through the plywood backing. If you have a secondary piece, you're going to want to lift this piece in now. Use 3-inch screws from the lower section ceiling to secure to the upper section. If it's 6 feet or above, screw into the stud in the upper section as well. In our case, the floor was not even, so we did use shims just to make it even. So now's the fun part. It's just time to accessorize your shelves. You're going to want to go ahead and install your handles and your catches. And then in our case, in the hole board section, we also have hangers for our tools to hang on. And that's pretty much it. So we're so thrilled with how it turned out. It is definitely a better use of space. And now it's very easy to find everything that we need. I love that we have different sections for different things. So tools are in one section, paint's in one section, all of my photography gear is in another section, and it just makes it really easy to find things, and they're tucked away in a way that looks really aesthetically pleasing and looks custom and built in. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any questions, hop in the comments below. If you like this video, be sure to give it a like, and if you love it, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.